Hey guys, what's up? Loco here for another Loco Reacts to Riot Dev Diary. So this one's from pretty far back. It's from May in 2017 and it's called Unusual Playstyles. I thought I'd go back and review this one because I was looking at some of the old Riot videos and I wanted to talk about things that are relevant. I know we have Worlds going on, so it's kind of a weird timing for this kind of content, but this deals with how Riot feels about weird and unusual playstyles. So for example, like Noobrak mid Teemo support, or it was just Teemo support that fifth mid, excuse me. So yeah, a lot of events has happened after this video went out. So I kind of want to go back, check this video out, and talk to you guys about my feelings and what Riot viewpoint is on unusual playstyles. Let's start.
Hi folks, I'm Andre, and I'm the lead gameplay designer for League of Legends. We wanted to talk to you a bit about unusual playstyles and experimental gameplay.
So this guy's name is Meddler. He's the guy with like the Ziggs icon that will post like dev diaries. It's like a forum post on the Riot official League of Legends forums, and it'll make it onto Reddit sometimes, and he'll talk about like things they're doing, things they're working on, how they feel about stuff. He's basically like the face of design for League of Legends. He's not the lead, but he is pretty high up there.
It's a subject we've been getting a lot of questions and discussion around recently, so we figured it was a good time. For most champions, there's generally a common way to play them. Building a bunch of attack damage and attack speed and crit items on a marksman, for example, and playing them in the bot lane. That's pretty standard nowadays.
Yep.
On some champions, though, you'll see an unusual tanky build,
Jungle
or
Yorick,
a weird split push, or jungle invade playstyle, or
mid Rammus. Oh my god.
Those style of things. And those can be unusual and still really effective.
So when these champions get played in multiple lanes, they become much harder to balance, and also some playstyles are just so toxic. For example, like Tank Karma top is incredibly frustrating to play against. Infinite wave clear mid laners, or like AP Master Yi that was popular for a bit. I think champions are designed with a certain item build and a certain playstyle in mind, and when they go wary, I think it actually creates a lot of toxic styles. So let's see where this video goes.
I think it's important that there's new things to discover and find, because that keeps the game fresh.
Okay.
You know, the meta of the game will gradually change over time. Or for those of you that are playing off meta, there's something new and unusual to experiment with as well.
So he's talking about the game not being solvable. Basically, tic-tac-toe is boring to play over and over again because, I mean, tic-tac-toe is easy to solve. Once you learn certain things about tic-tac-toe, you can never really lose against another player. At worst, you'll tie, and at best, like, you'll beat them always. So that's like a solved game. A game like League of Legends is becoming more and more solvable. It's not completely solvable, but sites like u.gg and Pro Play definitely helps everyone identify what's the strongest. So by the game being patched every 2 weeks, it kind of gets reshuffled, and then people have to try to solve it again. And also every year, Riot does like a big mega patch during the preseason, which completely changes the game. While I do agree with them, it is important to keep the game fresh and there be new things to discover. I think League of Legends overall has so much depth that you don't have to really worry about like players like needing things. Like the game is nowhere near being solved, even with like so many amount of pro players playing it, so many amount of coaches and analysts trying to solve the game, and also analytic websites. Like we're just nowhere near close to solving League of Legends.
It also means that you can find what's best for you as a player. You know, the particular champion that split pushes in the exact way that you're really good at, or that you enjoy the most. And trying to optimize that can be a lot of fun. So looking back at past seasons, we've seen a number of what were at the time experimental playstyles emerge.
I will touch a little bit on what he said regarding like optimizing your playstyle. I think when people do weird stuff, they do weird stuff because it's weird, because it's new, and it allows them to express themselves. Like, hey, I'm doing something different from everyone else. Like when you're optimizing, and he's talking about optimizing playstyles, that is a very like nitty gritty thing. Like min-maxing, like that's you just copying a pro player and like doing waves in a certain way and playing out things in a certain way. That's what pro players are trying to do, right? They're trying to optimize their playstyle, like optimize the best way to win. So I think it's really weird to talk about optimization in context of unusual playstyle, because optimization is just something that's extremely common and cookie cutter.
Some of which have actually become almost the dominant playstyle, or have very much become the dominant playstyle since. Back in Season 1, for example, there was a commonly accepted wisdom for a while that you put a couple of fighters or tanks bot lane.
Yep.
And then some of the EU teams started doing this weird thing where instead of putting their marksmen in the mid lane, they'd actually put them bot lane with another character who wouldn't farm much more.
Rain Man.
And over time,
Rain Man.
it was demonstrated, hey, this is really
special
effective.
Bot lane.
And other teams started doing that as well. And so the game evolved to this situation where you've got an ADC and a support as pretty much the expected common thing bot lane.
Yep.
But that wasn't always the case. For a more micro example,
oh my god,
at one
Proxy
point we started
Singed.
seeing Singed go from a unusual but standard laner to a champion who proxy farmed a lot more. You know, he'd run behind the enemy's tower and far away from his own minions and help, and just kill minions by running around with poison trail, occasionally even getting pretty far towards the enemy base, and often dying a lot. And that was really weird and unusual and still really effective. And nowadays, Singed play incorporates an awful lot of that. A few people trailblazed that way for a lot of the rest of the player base and showed how it was a cool and effective thing.
Proxy Singed is definitely an effective thing. I mean, I'm not going to make a comment on if it's cool or not, but it's also an incredibly toxic playstyle to be in the game. I think League of Legends and just gaming is fun when you're playing a PvP game. Like, you're playing to interact with your opponent. But if someone is proxy farming and they're doing it well and you don't know how to handle it, then you're not really interacting with your opponent. You're just interacting with the wave that's coming, and the enemy Singed is farming his wave where he's not interacting with you, and sometimes he's farming the mid laner's wave, like his mid laner. So it screws over his mid laner, he's not having fun, it screws over the opponent, like he's not getting to interact with the champion up in top lane. So the only person that's really having fun is like the Proxy Singed player, and I think that's a problem. And I think like that style overall, where it's very uninteractive and it can disrupt even their allies, is not a good playstyle to have. And I think Riot should have taken a very firm stance on Proxy Singed and try to push it out of the game.
So intent to win was what we think is most important. That as a player, if you're doing something unusual, you're trying to help your team get to victory, even if it may not be in a way that's well proven or that they necessarily completely understand. Because of that, it's really important that we distinguish between a player who is trolling and a player who is trying to win in an unusual way. And there's a few different things we can look at in order to, actually quite a lot of things, in order to make that determination.
I mean, you can intend to win, but if you're doing it in a way where it makes the overall experience negative for your allies or even for your enemies, I mean, yes, your enemies should have a negative experience playing versus you if you're doing things well. Like, you should try to annoy your opponents, you should try to kill your opponents, you should try to not make the game fun for your opponents. But if you're doing it without interactability, or you're doing it in a manner where the enemy mid laner is like forced to 2v1 or something, then it's just not what people sign up for when they play League of Legends, and especially for your allies too. So even with intent to win, I think one thing that's extremely important for Riot is this good for our player base for this to be like a possible playstyle, and like a playstyle that a lot of people are opting into.
That includes things like, is this player trying to maximize their team's resources on Summoner's Rift relative to the other team? If you're giving up all of your minions, your golden experience from the top lane, for example, and you're not costing the enemy team even more, you're probably making a pretty terrible choice. By contrast, if you're giving up some of your team's access to minions and XP in the bot lane, but you're completely shutting down the enemy jungler, that could be a really good, effective strategy if you can pull it off.
Yeah. I mean, if you can pull it off, yes, and like you roam, but that roam isn't guaranteed. So when you do roam and you don't get a kill, then are you trolling? And when you do get a kill, like you're not trolling? Like, I don't think these criteria that he's setting are very good.
To look at include how you use the resources that you've gathered. You know, are you just sitting on large amounts of gold and never buying anything? Or are you stacking multiple pairs of mobility boots that do nothing? So we'd certainly encourage you to talk to your team if you've got a really unusual playstyle. Help them understand what you're going for, how you're trying to win, that sort of thing. It gives you a better chance to win if your team are aware of how you're trying to change the game, what strategy you're trying to play, and they can work with you on that. In general, we really like seeing unique and interesting playstyles emerge, and seeing the game evolve.
They like seeing weird-ass playstyle. I think it's okay to see weird playstyles, but you really have to consider the experience for everyone involved. If your weird playstyle changes the experience, like as an AD carry, if you have a support player that's roaming 24/7, like Alicopter on Alistar is extremely famous for just roaming all the time, and I think he hit Masters or even Challengers playing that playstyle. Like, sure, that playstyle is fine, and apparently it's effective as hell, right? Because he got to Challenger with it. The problem is it's a miserable experience for your AD carry, and it's a miserable experience for the enemy like solo laners that are forced to deal with like the additional support going into their lane, and they don't get to practice the things they want to practice. I think that's where the problem is. It's not that if it's effective or not, just what kind of experience does it deliver for everyone else involved. Like, sure, that one person might be having fun, but for everyone else, like, their expectation was to play a normal game of League of Legends. And that expectation just gets thrown out the window, and it becomes extremely frustrating.
But that doesn't mean that every single unique playstyle is necessarily a good one. In the same way that we have guidelines for what good gameplay looks like, counterplay, clarity, satisfaction, team cooperation, those sort of things.
Yes.
For any playstyle, we'd want those from the unusual ones as well. And so there have been times in the past where we've deliberately removed some uncommon playstyles because of the effect they have on the game.
Okay,
The
that's good
clearest
to
example
hear.
of that in the past is probably AP Tryndamere. For any champion in the game, we want them to have noticeable strengths and weaknesses. They should be good at some things that, as the player of that champion, you try and take advantage of. And they should be weak at some things that, as that player, you try and guard against, and as the enemy, you try to exploit. Tryndamere is designed so that his heal forces him to give up some of his auto attack power, and he's actually got to build up that rage to get the heal in the first place as well. So there's some degree of interaction that goes into that. By contrast with AP Tryndamere, you don't need to build up rage, so there's none of that, attacking minions or champions to get it, and you're not auto attacking all that much anyway. So you're not really making that trade-off. There's no mana cost on the ability either.
Damn, Voy playing AP
effectively boiled
Tryndamere
down
and
to
LCS.
push Q for large heal repeatedly. Tank Echo is actually another good example of a playstyle that we felt was problematic for the game.
Of course.
Echo's got some really powerful tools on his kit, particularly the stun on his W and the rewind effect on his ult. But those are counterbalanced by, as a melee guy, he's got to get in there, he's got to take some risks. And so there's a real risk-reward trade-off and some limited safety nets for him.
So Tank Echo, when it got played, was just so hard to deal with due to him being extremely mobile, him having CC, and him also having decent damage with just Gauntlet and Sunfire. So I'm glad they got rid of that playstyle and they identify these playstyles as being toxic.
Tank Echo, by contrast, is much more reliable. He can go in, he can reliably be in there long enough to proc the W. He can just gradually train you down. And the R, instead of being a, oh crap, and get out of there button, becomes a heal me for a lot, and then I'll go back to doing my really reliable thing. So yeah, the problem with Tank Echo, effectively, was not that he was really hard to kill. It was that he was not giving up enough in exchange for that. Tank Echo didn't have the burst of AP Echo, but he still had more than enough damage, especially over the longer fight times that he could live for, to more than make up for it. And so we felt that AP Echo was the much more engaging and exciting playstyle for both the Echo player and everybody else.
Engaging and exciting playstyle. I cannot believe they identify Tank Echo as bad because it's not an engaging or exciting playstyle, but they can't identify Proxy Singed as bad because there is no engaging, there is no excitement. It's just one person playing PvE and rest of the world having to deal with it.
And as a result, we shifted some power so that the AP builds are much more rewarded and the reliable tank ones much less so. We've actually seen a couple of good examples recently of what historically would have been really unusual playstyles that have proven to both be pretty effective and pretty healthy for the game. The first of those is MF as a support, which most of us first saw in Worlds last year as a counterpick to Zyra. And that's been really cool, because she's still doing Misfortune-style things, she's still got those weaknesses, she still brings quite a bit of power in her ult, but she's doing it from the support position, so she's less concerned about that auto-attacking, playing more of a vision role on her team, more reliant on base damage than scalings, those sorts of things. And it also means that she's then laning with another ADC, and that then changes how, as that other ADC, you want to play. So you want somebody like Ashe, who brings a bunch of extra CC to support you, more than just raw damage. And if you play both ADC and support, there's then some interesting, hey, a champion I might already enjoy, I can now play in a different way.
I'm a little shaken on the MF support one because MF support came with its own problems. The only way you could really play versus MF support was gank it. There was honestly no real other ways due to the range of her Make It Rain E being extremely long, and combined with Comet, it was a playstyle that just had very, very little counterplay. And you can't play AD MF to just stay full distance and just use Make It Rain due to if you're not auto attacking and you're not getting in range of minions, then you're just not being useful as an AD carry. But support MF could just maintain maximum distance and keep harassing you down with Make It Rain, and there was very little counterplay towards it. So yes, it had weaknesses in terms of if it was ganked, it was very vulnerable. It didn't really have any defensive tools, and going into mid game, because the only thing you bring is damage. Your utility is damage. Support MF used to build Black Cleaver, so you're really lacking utility. But man, I don't think it was a great playstyle. I'm surprised to see Meddler call it healthy, because I didn't think it was that healthy.
Hotline Ziggs was the other example actually that we saw at the start of this year that's still getting some play. As a team, you're getting a lot of extra tower pushing pressure, especially in the early game from both the wave clear, his passive on towers, and the W's ability to execute low health towers. But you're also giving up that reliable auto attack damage, and you're losing a source of physical damage on a team, which puts some constraints on what you can run in your other lanes. So bot lane Ziggs still has some clear strengths and weaknesses to him.
So the thing about bot lane Ziggs that I keep trying to highlight is interactability. And bot lane Ziggs is a champion that's not about interacting. He can wave clear very efficiently and he can push very efficiently, and it becomes more of a wave manipulation game than an actual like gameplay game. I actually personally played bot lane Ziggs in the, what do you call it, Twitch Rivals for my team. So I laned with Celine, another streamer, and we were both like low diamond 4, and bot lane Ziggs was extremely efficient for us because sometimes we'd have to lane versus people that are much higher than us, like challenger players, and by us playing Ziggs, we could just neutralize the laning phase. Like we wouldn't have to lane as like a Ziggs Lulu, and we can just push 24/7, and that was our strategy. And it was a way to bypass like having to interact with players that are better than us and that would smash us. So I don't feel great about bot lane Ziggs personally, especially combined with like another pushing support. They're just it introduces like low interactability, and AP carries being played in a bot lane. I mean, I did a video on why AD carries are suffering so much right now. And another problem with like bot lane Ziggs is after the first back, especially when you're running teleport and you have lost chapter with multiple Doran rings, like you never run out of mana and you can have constant priority. And if you're just running a normal lane with like an AD carry and a support, there's just very little counterplay towards that. So I don't know, Riot. I don't quite agree with your points regarding what is a healthy playstyle.
Thanks for watching, folks. I hope this has been interesting.
It's been very interesting.
This is a pretty complicated topic with a range of different opinions on it, so we'd love to hear more from you, in the comments, on the forums, or wherever. Keep this discussion going.
I'm not sure what was Riot's ultimate decision on Nubrak's strategy.
And I asked like the guys, the support, this was a different Rioter now. I'm like, is it okay to play an off-meta champion in a new fashion as support? Is that bannable? And I'm like, as long as I buy a support item and support my laners, that shouldn't be bannable, correct?
I will report you after the game if you don't leave. What is my Teemo doing? You believe you did not grief that game.
Correct.
Explain to me why.
Because my strategy is perfectly within Riot's code of conduct.
But that's like a huge one I do want to bring up, and why I think it's very important how Riot polices certain strategies, especially for streamers and especially for high elo players, because whatever they do will definitely trickle down into like diamond and then to platinum and then to gold and then to silver and then bronze, and it will actually show up in your games because you're bronze or iron. JK. Most League of Legends player, I think like 50% of League of Legends players are below gold, or like they're like gold and silver and bronze. So anyways, like Nubrak's strat was he would pick support Teemo and he would sit in solo lanes and soak XP and then jump at people with Ignite and like surprise kill them.
I thought we were going in on that. This is so troll, man.
And he made it all the way to Masters doing that strategy. So that strategy is efficient. That's not my problem with it. That strategy is extremely unhealthy to play versus. As a bot laner, you're like, what the hell? I don't get to 2v2, I have to 1v2? Like, so this is definitely not what I signed up for. And as a solo laner on the ally team of Nubrak, you're like, okay, my XP is getting soaked, and this guy's just sitting there, so it's like really frustrating because you don't get to do that 1v1 laning and you're slowly falling behind. And as an enemy solo laner dealing with it, like, you have to deal with Teemo potentially being anywhere in the lane and him being able to jump you. It was just such a aggravating way to play for everyone involved except for Nubrak. Yeah, like I think strategies like that needs to be policed very heavily for the health of the game. But Riot doesn't really police. I mean, Riot just hasn't bad about policing stuff, like people getting inted on in their game, streamers getting inted on consistently, getting targeted. Like Dom went to Europe recently to do a boot camp and he got targeted so much that he couldn't really play. I mean, I definitely disagree with Riot overall on what is like a healthy playstyle, and I hope they take harsher stance regarding playstyles that ultimately make the game unfun for a majority of the people involved. That's my problem with it. Not the effectiveness part, but how much fun people are having. Because there's a certain expectation when you press that play button in League of Legends, like what kind of game you're getting into, right? And just having to deal with someone's like interesting or unusual way of playing and just making it so off-putting to play throughout that game is just, yeah, it's just not a good experience. So Riot, I hope you start policing playstyles much harder, and I also just hope you start policing high elo games and streamer games, because yeah, it hasn't been the best. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed another React content. I'm gonna be at TwitchCon when this video comes out, And I'm gonna be doing a lot of content for Worlds. Sorry I've been Mia. There's been Korea and TwitchCon, so I've been pretty busy. Later, boys.